I don't know how yours are looking, but my tomato seedlings this year are absolutely exploding with growth. And it's super encouraging. I've got about 40 plants here across 9 different varieties of tomato. I'm super excited about what I'm going to be able to harvest this growing season. But these plants are starting to outgrow their pots, and they've all already been potted up once this season. So I'm going to be very strategic here. I'm going to make sure that I'm treating these plants well when I pot them up. And I'm not just removing them from their current pot and placing them into a larger pot with more soil. This is the opportunity for me to do even more encouragement of growth. And since we're going to be working with a lot of soil here, and we're probably going to be doing some plant surgery, let's take this outside because it can get a little messy. Now, before you get to potting up your tomato plants, you're going to want to do a quick physical inspection. Take a look at every single plant that you're going to pot up and just get a general sense for the overall health of each plant. Take a look at the stems. Are they thickening up nicely, or does the plant still look a little bit leggy? There are some things that you can do to help fix that when you pot it up. Also, take a look at the leaves and check for any discoloration or curling. That can be a sure sign of nutrient deficiency that you can fix if you amend the soil that you're potting up these plants into. Also, with tomatoes, take a look to see if there are any side shoots, also called suckers. These, if left to their own devices, will become their own new stem, and they will grow an entire tomato plant on this stem. What you want to do in the early life of your tomato plants is you want to make sure that all of the energy is going towards building strong roots and a strong stem. You don't want anything to be competing with the main stem. So you can remove these side shoots and thus push the energy back into great root and stem development. Now, the caveat here is you only want to do that with indeterminate tomato varieties. Determinate tomatoes, you definitely don't want to pinch off the suckers. Reason being, determinate tomatoes, they have a determined size that they're going to grow. They have a determined amount of fruit that they are going to grow. And that determined size and harvest depends on the side shoots remaining. So, for your indeterminate varieties, go ahead and remove the suckers. For the determinate varieties, just let them keep growing. One of the other things that you'll want to check out as you do a physical inspection of your plants is whether there are any flower buds. If there are, go ahead and pinch them off. These still have a month and a half before they're going to be in the ground out here in this garden. So them trying to grow some fruit right now is, well, not going to be fruitful. So remove those little flower buds so they don't steal energy from the root and the stem. This plant here is one of the biggest in the group, but it also displays a good bit of the signs that we're looking for when we do visual inspection. There are some discolored leaves, so we might have a nutrient deficiency, probably nitrogen. So I need to make sure that I take care of that. The stem is also really tall, but it's not very thick. So there are some things that we can do when we pot it up to ensure that the stem continues to grow nice and thick. The root system is looking pretty good. It's being constricted a little bit by these fiber pots, which frankly, I'm not a fan of. This is my first year using these, and I'll probably never use them again. I actually find that they don't break down super well, and in order to remove these plants from these pots, you end up having to tear up some of the root system. I don't want to deal with that. These plants are going to be stressed enough when they get transplanted that I don't want to put even more stress on them by ripping out some of their establishing roots. And also, this plant is already growing some flower buds, and we're not going to be growing tomatoes indoors. So over the next 6 weeks, these flowers are going to start to suck more and more energy from this plant. And we want the roots to grow strong, the stem to grow strong. We want all of the nutrition to go straight to the roots and the stem, not to these flowers that are never going to become tomatoes. Now, potting up is super simple, even with some of the extra measures that we need to take for some of the plants that need some additional attention. All you need is a good quality potting mix, some pots that are larger than the pots that your plants are currently in, and probably just a little bit of fertilizer. You can use granules, you can use liquid fertilizer, you could even use something like well-rotted manure or compost. and mix that into your soil ahead of putting it into the pot. For me, I'm going to use a little bit of this plant food and sprinkle it into the bottom of the pot before I put the plant in. This is a really good feed that's a mixture of fish bone, bone meal, feather meal, alfalfa, kelp meal, rock phosphate, and some other nutrients that are really going to help. It also contains some beneficial bacteria and some mycorrhizal fungi. So for me, I like to use this sort of as an all-around fertilizer as I'm transplanting, but you can use what works for you. A fish emulsion, some other type of fertilizer, compost, or well-rotted manure. To transplant your seedling, first, you want to prep the pot. So get a little bit of potting mix into your pot, but not too much, maybe only an inch or two, and I'll tell you why in a second. Once your pot has a little bit of soil in it, then you can start to gently remove your tomato from its current pot. Now for me, because I made the mistake of using these fiber pots, I'm actually going to have to be super careful and tear the pot away from the roots and the soil. And unfortunately, because I'm doing this and because the roots have started to grow through this fiber, I'm going to end up pulling out some of the roots. Now this is going to stress out the plant a little bit, but they're resilient and they're about to be fed. They're about to become really happy. So just take your time, be as careful as you can, but know that you're going to end up pulling out some of the roots if you use a pot like this. And once the plant is completely removed from the pot is going to be in shreds. I just take this and throw it into my compost bin. Now remember when I said you only want to fill your pot up with about 1 to 2 inches of soil? That's intentional. We want to plant this tomato plant as deeply as we possibly can in this pot. Why? Because we want to continue to encourage root growth. If you take a look along the stem of your tomato plant, you will start to see some bumps. These bumps are known as adventitious roots or aerial roots or stem roots. Adventitious roots will come straight from the stem. When adventitious roots come in contact with soil, they will take root. And you'll end up having a root system that runs not only from here to here, but from here to here on your tomato plant. It's a common misconception that these little hairs along the stem are root hairs. They're not. These aren't what are going to take root when you plant your tomato deeply. These are called trichomes, and trichomes protect the plant. They protect them from pests, they protect them from temperature fluctuations, they help with moisture retention. It also excretes oils that helps give the tomato plant its unique scent. Some people don't like the scent of tomato plants, but I like it. I think it smells like sunshine. Now, one of the things you have to be mindful of as you are planting your tomato plant deeply is how far up on the plant it's going to go. If you take a look at this plant currently, I'm going to be covering 2 of the leaf stems on this plant, but I don't want to bury those. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of plant surgery before I get this tomato plant into the pot. Don't worry too much about snipping these off. The tomato plant is going to be fine. Pruning is actually a really healthy practice when it comes to growing tomatoes. So go ahead and prune liberally. Make sure that you're not cutting the main stem, but any of these leaf stems you can absolutely remove, especially if you're coming up against some discoloration. One of the things that you'll naturally want to do when you see a plant that has some nutrient deficiencies is you will want to give it some food and then you'll want to see it improve. And you'll think, okay, well, these leaves that are yellow, these are going to start to turn green and that's how I know it's working. That's not going to happen. Once these leaves turn yellow, they're going to stay yellow. If you have curled leaves, they're going to stay curled. What you're doing when you feed is you're giving the future of the plant the nutrition that it needs. So don't worry too much about removing things like this, especially if it's going to be beneath the soil surface, but also if it just is a little bit discolored or otherwise disfigured. And because I recognize some nutrient deficiencies in this particular plant, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of my fertilizer just into the very bottom of the pot. Not too much, you don't want to go crazy with it, but you do want to make sure that you're giving the plant some food as you pot it up into its new soil. And once you've got the fertilizer in, you can mix it around a little bit and then just pop your plant in and make sure that you're holding it up so it's nice and straight, and start to fill in with your high quality potting soil. And you can fill all the way to the top. And remember, it's okay to cover parts of the stem that weren't covered with soil before. These adventitious roots are looking for this soil. They want to grow. They want to strengthen your root system. And that's exactly what you're going to be encouraging as you plant this tomato plant more deeply than it was in its original pot. After transplanting, especially if you had to do a little bit of surgery, your plant might look a little bit sad. Rest assured, you're doing right by your plant. Just make sure that you give it a drink, you put it back under lights, and it's going to be nice and happy. Now, some of your plants on inspection are going to be doing exceptionally well, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't take similar precautions as you did your other plants. You still want to make sure that you're planting your tomato seedling as deeply as possible in its new pot, because you want this root system to grow big and strong. You also want to make sure that you're removing anything like flower buds. There's no discoloration, no leaf curl to speak of here, but I'm still going to remove some of these leaf stems, and I'm going to have to remove these leaf stems in order to plant the plant as deeply as I possibly can in this pot. Don't worry about it. You're not hurting the plant. You're not messing up what's to come. You're actually setting this plant up to absolutely flourish in your garden this season. And that's it. That's all you need to do in order to ensure that your tomato plants are staying on track and keeping healthy ahead of the growing season. I hope this was helpful information for you and that your tomato plants are coming along great. I have a lot more tomatoes that I need to pot up, so I'm going to get at it. Happy growing.